Let's call the meeting of the Delaware County Regional Wastewater, March 5th, 2025 to order. Can anyone call roll, please?
Ray.
Yes.
Josh.
Here.
Joe. Here. Bill.
Yes.
Linda. Ron.
Here. Okay, with that, previous minutes from February 4, 2025 was put out. I'd entertain a motion. Second. Got a first and a second. Any additions, changes, corrections? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Approved. Treasurer's report. Mr. Pete is out today. Claims from January 31st, 2025 through February 28th, 2025 totaling $1,181,323.27. Account balances as of February 28th, 2025. Cash operating balance $420,000. Improvement fund balance $2,261,307.95.
70.
Excuse me. Huh?
You said 307.
$370.95. Excuse me. February 2025 Delville TIF transfer of $9,411. And the Indiana Bond Bank transfer of $18,663. I would so entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. I've got a first and second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Approved. As you see underneath, I didn't read, but you see the rundown of the CDs. We got one coming up on 3/14. I don't see, does anybody, I think we continue with what we're doing until advised otherwise. Anybody have any say so or concerns on that?
In February, we secured 4.12 for the last one.
We're still above, we're above 4, so I said we continue to keep going. Old business, Endpoint Creative quote for the live streaming meeting.
I just spoke to, and we're gonna get a formal, contract together for the board's approval next month. So right now we pay $100 per meeting for the recording and everything. Mark said it'd be an additional 50 if we get live stream on that. That's been the only one I've been able to secure so far, and kind of spoke with Danielle, what she's seeing with other, municipalities and districts, and she kind of felt like that was pretty fair and comparable too. So I'll get that to the board next month for approval. So we have till July, Danielle?
I think July 1st is when that's come in. I mean, it brings us up to speed with everybody else, and being a separate entity from the municipalities, I think we're good to go live streaming and let people see it straight as it happens.
And once we get that, if we get that approved, I'll just have Mark and Ashley speak and get access to the YouTube, and we'll go from there, and it'll be streaming live on YouTube there.
There you go.
So we should have a actual contract next month for that.
Got it. New business.
We have 2 Commonwealth invoices. One for the Royalton sanitary sewer improvements that's been ongoing for $6,555.76, and one for the Camac sewer rehab, bid and design for $21,360. We are moving right along on both these. When we get a little bit further, we can give a better update on the Camac sewer bids that have came in. That Royalton we're getting after it, and we're pretty near completion, and everything looks good here.
Where are we at with the Camac design, Rob? How close are we? I mean,
the invoice we got is at 82% completion for that. The bid and design, but we're a month behind on the invoices.
On the invoice from
yeah,
the
so
okay.
We're there.
Okay. So you're recommending approval on both?
Recommend approval on both, correct?
You want those in separate motions?
I think we've done it in the past, just one together.
I make a motion for the approval for the project of $6,555.76 and the Camac rehab design of $21,360. I have a first.
I'll second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion approved.
That is the only new business under reports. Collections update. Last month we were at 2,455.94 over the entire service area. When I sent out my report at the beginning of the week, it was upwards of, I think we were sitting around just short of $6,000. Today, his number is actually 1399.98. Davey was able to make some more calls. Scott and Brian got out, hand delivered the letters before locates are called in. That always brings the number way down. We've had a couple that are been on the list for a while, but just due to the Morton project going on and everything, we haven't had a chance to cap off. But we're still, I don't think we even have in a single account over $400. So we're doing great as far as collections go. The fence that was approved last meeting for the pole barn extension, that was completed this week. Looks great. Sliding gate. I know Bill had mentioned us getting, and Pete had also talked about us maybe getting a automatic slider on that. Then after the meeting, I spoke with Scott, and we can't do that just because everybody that has to have access to our property there, we have trash, gas, electric, and everybody. So we got a group of hanging lots on it the way it is. So we just went with the normal manual slide on that. Warton update. We are after this week at pretty much completion of all construction. Next thing will be button up, doing ground restoration and everything at the 3 sites. There's a little bit of all that, of all 3 of those different dig sites that they were on. So this rain, although not welcome, it's kind of nice to get it today to get some of this dirt to settle. The only other thing I got, I know we had moved some different items to surplus last month. We got those listed. We listed, I think there was 7 total items. We had 2 of them that didn't sell at all, and those were both, all those items were placed at, no reserves on them. We had the 2 that didn't sell. There were a set of the old pumps from the Morton job that were just taken out. And then we had a old bypass pump that was been over at 600 for 25 plus years probably. And based on how we've looked and seen these other surplus pumps similar to this selling and what we sold these other ones for, my recommendation is the people that are buying this stuff, they're buying it to scrap. And we have a scrap bin on site. If we're gonna scrap it, I'd rather see us scrap it at this point. We put it out for bid, and my only question is to Danielle is if we can go ahead and put those, get rid of them, dispose of them in a scrap form instead of having to place them back up on the site for auction. Okay, that'd be my recommendation. If the board's okay with that, we'd take those 3 pumps and put them in the recycling.
I don't have
So
a
board
problem.
decide.
I don't have a problem.
You need a
with it.
motion. Do we need a motion for that and put it? You want
I
to put it down?
would, just because when we've deemed them surplus to put them on an auction site, we're saying they have a value. So
Somebody
let's make
bid
a
on them, but
motion.
still, we can go back now at the second to do it. We're taking it to scrap instead of selling it to scrap somebody. I take a motion.
Motion that we put them in the scrap bin.
I'll second it.
Got a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
And the last thing, we finished up all year-end reporting through Gateway. Jennifer helped us get the last bit of that done. All the books are balanced. We got, I think there was 1 adjustment to make, and it was just based on how Penny's cash operating and the, I'm gonna say this completely wrong if you don't.
Okay. In the system, and I actually just learned that because everything has balanced up till now, and all my bankrupt balance every month, right? So Jennifer says, your system, your trial balance doesn't match. And I'm like, no, it's not if I balanced every month. So I called SSI, and there's a cash and a bank.
Curl.
Yep. There's a
Like
cash
Cash
and a
flow,
bank.
cash in accrual.
curl.
Yep.
Yes.
I get caught in
And
that system.
we don't do that system. We're just cash in, cash out.
Yep.
And so it's built for their accrual system. So anyway, we got it all balanced out, and it was just, I was relieved after that, because I was like, what is going on?
Usually if you have the first one, you go to the deal on the cash system, you go to the end, you reconcile with what your December is, and you add that, then you come out perfect.
Yeah.
That's what, but you.
Just does it for you.
Oh, yeah, I have to do mine manually for ECI, but we're on a cash, and that's always it. That last one, you've got to include what's outstanding, and then you come up to even.
Yeah. But there was some, I've been doing a lot of general journals, because the system puts the money where they want it, so it defaults to cash operating. And also, we only have one fund. A lot of other places have multiple funds, so we're just set up kind of crazy for the system, for the software, but it works. But, so it would default to cash operating. And so if I needed to put interest in a Bank of New York account, I would have to go in and change that default account and make sure they didn't post anything, because it'll go to that account and then go back and change it every time I'm done with my journal. Well, so on the cash side of it, it looked right, because it was putting it in the right bank for my bank, but on the cash side of it, it wasn't. It was putting it in a default account.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be taken care of when Jennifer gets back. She'll tell me what journal entries I need to do.
That's the beauty of programmers,
Yes.
or the negative about programmers writing them, and then the person who's actually using the system
Yes.
is not meeting in the
Doesn't
middle.
work.
Yeah.
With the bugs.
So Jason, are you through throwing Penny underneath the bus now? That never stops.
I've got a question. I should have probably asked it a while ago. The guy that was damaging our lines, whatever happened with that.
We filed a police report. His order from the health department should be out any day. Actually, Scott was out there today. Go by there today. The same residents are still living there. They're not tampering. Still have never gotten in contact with them since the board made the decision not to give them any forbearance. And the police report was filed, and they told us they would get back to us if there was actually additional steps taken.
Where's this at?
State Road 3.
Okay, yeah, that's a different one, okay. No.
Have they paid anything?
No, it's all, we haven't got notification from the treasurer's office that it's been paid in full, or the health department's been checking on it too.
Makes you wonder what they mean.
They did tell us, the health department did tell us, so that they did make contact with the owner on file, and, that they're aware of it, and they were working as well to get them out.
I wonder, I got two things. Have we heard anything more out of the one on Elder Street in Delaware that I called you about? The house at the split level. Elver, back in Sergeant Edition. We heard anything either the other day, and plug is still in there. Okay. But gotta remember, there's water pits in their yard, on well. I know. But the problem, what electricity doesn't come from there. Me and you talked about that. They had paid you guys, but they still owed the lien in the treasurer's office. It's like a $75 lien. Remember the one?
I don't remember that conversation now.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, no, I do. Yes, $50.
Because I asked you who had. I asked you who it was, and I have not seen the dumpster, and I have not seen anything. I know there's a lady trying to help, but I wanted to know if that other part was taken care of, because I haven't seen it. Because if not, I'm with you. I need to get the health. Need to get with the building commissioner, and the health department needs to pay a visit because it's inhabitable.
We had 0 reconnection, so
okay.
no, they did
okay.
pay.
That's all I needed to know.
But that's all that was owed, $50, yeah.
Okay. Even if they get the power turned back on, that well pump kicks on, it goes flood their place. I agree. I guarantee all these pipes that are frozen conflict. Right. There's no doubt. Okay. The other one, I want to backtrack just a little if I can, just to get into where are we at, and have we made arrangements for the parking lot there at the building? Remember, they're supposed to fix that in the spring, and do we know? I'd say they're gonna be in there probably
in the next 2 months.
I was gonna say, it should be an early one, because while they're doing all the rest, they can knock that out of the way and have it done. And I just wanna make sure that we still got that on the radar and somebody's in conversation with them, we get that taken care of.
Be more or less first on the list.
I just wanna keep it,
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
At the barn, yeah.
Yeah, it's a barn. Okay. You done?
That's all I got, yep.
Danielle, it's you.
The first thing I have isn't necessarily for action today. Because Joe wasn't with us last month, I went ahead and drafted a draft ordinance for the virtual meeting attendance. It's primarily in the sections, just the statutory language for the requirements if you do adopt an ordinance for virtual attendance. So I just handed that out this month so that everybody can take it, look over it, and talk about it. And we can come back in, what are we in March now? So April, and we can introduce it or, do whatever discussions next month. I just wanted to give an opportunity for Joe to be involved since she was
Not here.
basking in the sun
Well,
instead of
and-
attending.
My one time a year.
And full disclosure, I asked for it because going the virtual and everything goes live, things are changing, they're doing it at the State House, they're opening it up across the table. We all are getting busy and taking more hats on, and there may be a time or two that we need to be out of here that we could attend still, in case we needed to. Your input could be included in the meeting, so.
Can we go ahead and discuss some of these things while we're
Yeah.
here, and so we can
I just
see
didn't want
what people
anyone
like
to,
or not
I didn't
like?
want you to feel obligated to have to discuss it since you weren't here last
Oh,
month.
I
but-
read it, I get it. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
You got something to shoot?
first off, I believe if somebody's gonna commit themselves to being on a board, they need to be committed to being on the board and being present at the board meetings. I do understand the necessity to not be present, because all of us live very busy lives. I think when you have something planned, you notify the board, like I did. For when I was gone, the parts of this I do not care for. If we were to adopt something like this, I think the, section 7, is excessive. Because it reads at least 50% of the members of the governing must be physically present at a meeting. I think that's great, the 50%, but when you have a board with our numbers, I don't think that's enough to say that it should be more. And I think we need to be in person. I don't think we should, use an excuse. We have a job too. We all have jobs. We all work. If you find in your life you can't be on a board because your board activities are getting in the way of your things that actually pay your bills, then maybe you need to step down from the board. So, we haven't had a big problem until recently. We're way past COVID, and so we can't use that excuse anymore that so many of us got used to with the Zooms and all that kind of stuff. I just think that if you're gonna be on a board, you need to be committed to be on a board. And every so often, it's gonna happen with each of us to miss a meeting. And recently, it's become, I don't think we should change board meetings around to suit the board either. We've had to do that recently because we didn't have a quorum. We might be talking in circles because I got so much. I just think when you're on a board, you need to be committed to being on the board, or you're not an active member of it. So if this was something where it said, yeah, you're allowed to miss one, you know what? But what if we are all missing that same board meeting? Then we're not going to have a quorum regardless.
Right.
And so we'd have people sitting out here that came to our meeting, and we wouldn't even be here. Any of this makes sense?
Yeah,
Or
and
I
so-
just have passion about being active when you're on a board.
And these sections are pretty much verbatim from the statute. The statute just says that the board has to put a set of rules in place. So you couldn't, for example, allow less than 50% of the board because you have to have the quorum. But you can alter some of these to be
That was
more
gonna be my
strict.
next question to you. Do you have a number there that you might do? But see, if it
So
was
for
different-
example, yeah, whatever you come up with, but you could say only one person per meeting could miss, or, you could, as a board, come up with additional,
How do we decide which person that's gonna be then, how do we play the roulette on that one?
flip a coin, no. First in line, I don't know, that's
First come, first served.
something,
Cause we all,
if we put
there's
that in
health
place, I'd
problems
wanna
for all of
know,
us at different times, or death, or anything like that, we can't be here, so. And you're not gonna, if you're in that kind of thing with, let's say you have to miss it for a death, you're not gonna be sitting here zooming anyway.
Exactly.
You're still gonna be absent from the meeting no matter what. So maybe, yeah, maybe we could, I'll look at this until next board meeting like you suggested, and
Anybody have anything else they've seen in it they want to have us, have the rest of the board think about before the next meeting? Yes, you may, sir.
One thing with us on the council is sometimes some of our training interferes with everybody, so we got to be a little careful. So we are just like 50%, the other 50% on Zoom because we're at the training conference. That's the reason some of that, like,
The 50% was in there, 50% was in there. Understood. Thank you.
one of the other things, one of the sections to think about too is how many meetings, because I'm assuming this is gonna be one you may, want to discuss, is how many meetings a year can you miss, right?
Is that in here?
To be virtual, yeah, it's the statute allows no more than, 50% of the meetings, I think.
I'm with Joe. I mean, if you're
But
if you're
you
gonna miss
also
50%
cannot-
of the meetings, you don't need to be on the board. You need to be in another realm because you've made a commitment to the board. To me, this is like that one or two times a year when something comes up. I mean, where the wires cross. And some of us do. I mean, it's just, I could get thrown into a meeting on attorneys on something and have to be out or vice versa and catch it, but where I might not be able to make it back here, but I can do it in the car on the way or whatever. That was my gist of it. If I was gonna be out the whole time, obviously I'd say I wouldn't be here and go on with the meeting, but if it's somewhere where I've got travel time in between, I can still catch it and still be involved in it.
The statute also says though that provision is in there, you can't miss more than two at a time. So if you miss, for instance, you have 2 months you're virtual, you'd have to attend before you could miss another.
I think there ought to be some guardrails on it. I don't think, like I said, I'm with Joe in that we're on a commitment. I don't see where anybody would have to use it more than 2 times a year. And if you do, then you've got other issues that needs to be considered besides this. Like I said, this was just a safeguard, just so that everybody, we had participation and that all the areas represented that we take care of and represent on the county had a voice if something serious come up and you got caught somewhere where you couldn't get to the meeting. That was the gist of the whole idea behind it.
I wouldn't want, any of us, not that I believe anybody would, but to say, another meeting came up for somebody, let's say you did, or I did, and say, oh, well, I can get away with this board because I can just say I'm gonna zoom in or I'm gonna miss. Whereas I probably, or I do right now say, I can't do it because I got a board meeting at 3:00 first Wednesday of the month. So that's why I'm here. I knew last month, a year in advance, I wasn't going to be here for last month's.
And you've already served a year notice for your
I
vacation in January.
I'm doing it now, but that's just my feelings on it and all. And I know the other thing that comes up, well, you can't get anybody to serve on the board. Well, if all of us put the word out there more when there was an opening and helped to do that too.
This is where we tell her we put her on the committee that she wasn't here for. She was gone.
Well, she said she listened, so.
She did, she picked up, you weren't here.
I heard your last meeting, yes, I did, yeah.
Just thought I'd throw that in there and make sure you knew that was on there.
Okay, I said my spiel, committed to something, so.
Anybody else got anything else on this right now?
I think just from our aspect too, we have seen situations on the other side where if we knew we had at least one virtual, we came down to noon 30 and didn't know if we were gonna have a quorum before too. It may happen once a year. If we could also say, I can't attend today, but I can attend virtually. If we set those, lines of defense up, 1 or 2 a year, it also helps us a little bit as well.
Mhm.
I think Dan had some points.
Yes, sir.
I think ours is limited to 3 on council.
That's helpful.
3 a year. See, I was down to two, so I mean, let's take it into consideration. Everybody think about it, and let's bring it back up at the next meeting, okay? Take some time to go through it, please.
Thank you.
And if you want me to have, if you guys want to send input to me, I can have another draft. If everybody's pretty consistent about, you know, some limitations or something, I can have a draft ready, or you can introduce next month. We'll have a big discussion and we can adopt it.
Adopt it in May.
We need to go to something like that, for sure. It's just getting down to the details
It
of
is.
how much.
And I agree with you. I don't think it needs to be very limited. I don't think it's going to be a big issue with this board. I've never seen it. You know, like you said, there's been maybe one or two times
Having that
in
extra
the
person.
5 years I've been on here where we might have needed that to have a quorum.
My next update on Wassons, I did reach back out to Dan. I'm not sure that was, you know, something that was necessarily a urgent matter. He said he apologized for not getting back to me. He's going to reach back out to the client. I haven't heard from him in the last couple of weeks. I will touch base with him here in the next couple of weeks, and I'm sure he's in the middle of getting back with Wassons too to get back on track on figuring out what they need to do to finalize anything with those lines. So we can work on that easement, but so the update is I don't necessarily have an update, but he's coming back around. I'm sure end of year stuff is busy for everyone. So the last thing I have is an update on Westel. So in the last month, well, Carrie came last month. Well, I've talked to him so much. He came to this board meeting, right? Okay. So he came, presented to this board just to touch base with everyone. He also came to the redevelopment commission to touch base with that board. Westel had an executive session last, I think, Thursday, and they decided that they needed to, they gave Carrie authority to look into the matter further to kind of get back on track. The only problem is we are now in March, and any application for funding has to be submitted by March 31st, which I had cautioned a few months ago that we were going to get into some critical time constraints. We are there. So I believe next Thursday, Carrie is going to be presenting to the redevelopment commission to request $10,000, up to $10,000, and Rob, you can clarify if that's inaccurate, but I think it'll be up to $10,000 to update the PER that we started, that was paid for by us through the ARP dollars that we had for that project at that time, the initial part of that PER. Rob is going to work on updating that. Bill and I have been in constant communication with Rob over the last week or two, and really over the last couple of months, knowing this was going to probably be coming back up. So he's going to work on updating that. Just an hour or so ago, Rob was able to have a conversation with the representative from SRF to find out who they wanted to be the ones to submit the application. This is new information, and one thing I questioned last week, who's submitting this application? Because I know Westel was prepared to start immediately working on things, and I said, well, is Westel submitting it? Are we submitting it? We've got a lot we need to talk about in the next 3 weeks. So SRF has stated that their preference is based on the way their program works. It needs to be us who will be the end recipient of the work. We would submit the application, but that does not preclude Westel from eventually being the borrower on the application. So essentially, we submit the application, and at some point maybe that gets transferred over before closing or after closing. I'm not sure. Rob, you may be able to speak on that part since you talked to Camille.
So the the guidance that I got from the state was the application should be submitted by the district. And really what that does is it starts the process and gets us in line at the table, at the dinner table, right? The application, the PER, they take 2-3 months to review everything, score, rank, ask all their questions, because their fiscal year starts on July 1. So first, second week of July is when they publish their list of projects that scored the highest and they would like to fund. So we're gonna know likely between when this thing goes in early April into March and late June, early July, where the project, and I'll refer to it as the project, where it stands in the eyes of the state. Once the project itself is scored, that's when, you know, the board and Jennifer and Danielle will start having dialogue, you know, the backroom dialogue with the folks at SRF to decide how's this all going to come together, who's going to have essentially skin in the game in addition to any funding that comes from the state, and how is all the parameters going to be established. Once those, you know, once that framework is identified, then SRF is going to come back to us and them, being the school, and say, all right, here's what we're able to come up with. Can you guys figure out how to make this work? And then at that point, that would be the likely transition point, Danielle, where it would go from the district being identified as the one requesting the financing to, yeah, the district made the request, but the other entity would eventually be on the hook to pay the debt. So it'll have to be transitioned prior to closing, but until the application is submitted and accepted and scored high enough to where they want to fund it, at that point is when everybody's going to have to come to the table and decide how are we going to, all right, we know they want to fund us, all right, we've gotten past that hurdle. Now what's it going to take to make it work? And
What's our match?
yeah, exactly.
Well, and I think, and she said, I've been in several conversations with Carrie. Carrie's asked questions both about the ARP, which is, we all know is gone, it's uncommitted. What he did ask about was, DCRC, which I cannot answer to, but he cannot go to DCRC and ask for any help until we know what that number is coming back after the grant is scored and what we see that we're offered from SRF. Because then that would all fall on Westdale, and then he could ask the DCRC if they did. If we remember, it was part ARP, part DCRC. I can't speak for them, that's totally up to that board whether they want to get involved more than the $10,000. But we need to know what that number is from SRF, from what the total package would be with the forgiveness and the grant and all of that before we could go, those two conversations could take place. With the understanding that Westdale knows now, with Carrie doing a very good job of explaining, no one is committed until after the application is put in and we see what we can even get.
Yeah.
Where we didn't get last time.
And that's a good point. And that's something that this board needs to remember. Just because you're submitting an application doesn't commit you to anything. Even if they come back and make you an offer, or whomever, the team, the project, if they make an offer to fund the project, it doesn't commit anybody to anything. Because they're gonna, once the project is scored and ranked, assuming it ought to score well, right? It checks the regionalization box, it eliminates a wastewater treatment plant outfall. There's a lot of things it has going for it that it should score well. Assuming it scores well, assuming we come out in July and we're in what they call their fundable range, where we have access to all the different piles of money that they have. At that point, we all sit down and say, what's it going to take to make this work, and who's going to be willing to do what? At that point, once they land on a package, they're basically going to come back and say, here's what we can do. You guys need to tell us if you're in or not. And at that point, the decision has to be made.
And so let me clarify. What I thought I was going to be doing was giving an update to say, Carrie only came to say, can I start having that conversation with you guys. Can we keep talking? Can we get back to the table to say there's a fresh board? Let's have a new look at this. It may still be that this project doesn't go forward because the funding options may not be enough for Westdale to move forward. And we all know that that's an option. I know this board understands it because we were knee deep and understood everything that happened before. So I think the nice thing is Carrie is able to relay that information to the full board now. So one ask that I had on behalf of DCRC, and I did ask on behalf of this board, was if all of these conversations are going to take place, Westdale needs to have a public meeting to ask us to continue to have these conversations. No more executive sessions, no more anything happening behind closed doors to where we get in a situation we were put in last time. So, nearly immediately, Carrie made the request, talked to Kyle. This was Monday, Tuesday, I don't even know what date it is this week. Yesterday, Carrie reached back out. Kyle has set the meeting for Westdale for tomorrow, I believe at 5 o'clock. I will triple check that. Did I tell you 5 o'clock?
I think it was,
So they have done exactly what we asked. They are having their public meeting so that they can bring it before the public. They can say, hey, this is the next step. So that was the update I thought I was going to have, and to say that when we submit this application, which has to happen before our next board meeting, we need to submit with it a letter that we are willing to move forward, see how this goes, continue the conversation, and that letter of support has now turned into, in the last hour, we are also going to need to know if this board is willing to now submit that application, if that's what SRF is saying that they want, because between now and the next board meeting, Bill's going to need to sign off on that application when Rob finishes his PER. Well, updates the PER.
Yeah, we have, I mean, we wrote this,
Yep. When we did it from 69 all the way to Gaston.
it's in, the
Two-phase.
original documents in draft form, it's just a matter of, the costs are 2 years old. The requirements from the funding agency have changed a little bit with respect to some things that'll have to be added and incorporated, those types of things. Material costs have gone up, there's things, we need updated costs, is probably the most important thing, but beyond that, I mean, all the concepts are there, right, nothing's changed. So, I feel very comfortable that I can have that updated between now and the end of the month. There's gonna be other things that are required, we have to do public meetings, you know, we have to have a public hearing, present the report, let people know we're submitting a funding application. It's the same thing we went through on some of the Westbrook project, we did this on the Westbrook project, the Roriton project, so.
Did you not inform me that we would have some leeway on that, we
You
could do
can,
that?
we don't have to have, we
We
don't
could
have
do
to
our
have that
April
for
meeting.
the application.
Okay, we could do that in our April meeting before the April meeting, have the public hearing.
Ideally, I'm gonna talk ahead a little bit, and then I wanna take a step back. So, when we do the public meeting, it's gotta be advertised 10 days in advance of the meeting in the paper. We would take care of all that, and I have to have the PER available for public review during that advertisement period. Be in Jason's office, sitting on a desk, if anybody wants to come look at it. We could decide today, we don't have to, if we want to do it in conjunction with your April meeting, and be it that way, or we can decide, let's just get the thing submitted and we'll get our meeting scheduled, in which case it wouldn't be the first time we put an application in that said, we know we've got to do this, this, and this, including a public meeting, and it is, you know, tentatively scheduled for April of 2025 or whenever we decide, but we at least acknowledge in the report, because there's a whole chapter dedicated to public participation. We'll identify in there, you know, the meeting is forthcoming, and, you know, minutes and the publisher's affidavit and all that will be submitted, in fairly short order. or we can decide we wanna just go ahead and schedule it for your April meeting date and do it before that meeting starts. It doesn't really matter to me.
That would be my preference. is
Yeah,
to
we
just
can do
it
that.
prior to the meeting, like the
That,
same day.
that would look better on an application, because then I can say, as, definitively, it's already been scheduled and it's advertised already,
Exactly.
that sort
That's
of
what I was
thing.
trying to get to.
So, logistically, that needs to occur, and then, for those of you that were on the board, the last time we went through one of these SRF projects, which was the Westbrook project, there's a couple resolutions that you'll need to adopt. One is, a PER acceptance resolution, so once I make the updates, you accept our recommendations, which won't change, just the costs are updated. And then a project signatory resolution, which basically is authorizing Bill or whomever the board determines to be the project signatory moving forward when things need to be signed. That person or persons, it can be more than one person, gets identified by resolution, and there's standard SRF forms that'll get assigned resolution numbers by Danielle and Penny. But those things will also need to get approved by the applicant, whether that's us or whoever. And typically, we present those for approval after the public meeting, because you have your public meeting, get through that, and then I can say, all right, I have this PER acceptance resolution prepared for you guys to adopt. So procedurally, those are a few things that will need to get addressed. They don't have to be done by March 31st. So, we can still submit the application, but they need to be done shortly thereafter.
Danielle, I got a question. I know this is a little bit premature. Are they committed? It looks like we're gonna have to jump through a lot of hoops. Are they really committed to this? Estelle?
So I think they have a couple of board members that are very committed. I think they have one that is pretty committed. And there's one or two that I am not 100% sure on, because I just haven't had a lot of interaction with those two, so I couldn't speak for them. So I'll speak for Carrie, because he's been the one that's been in communication with me. Carrie understands the need. Carrie has been very involved with IDEM. He is very aware of the issues that Westell faces with the penalties that are going to come to the school if things don't happen. He's very conscientious about potential bonding that would have to happen if they keep having to do things to work on this septic system, or if they have to build a brand new plant, or whatever it may be. And he's aware that that money just isn't there any longer because of whatever the situation may be at that school. So I think when you have a person like that driving a project, it's easy for other people to understand the need.
I will tell you, Kerry I've had several phone calls, same as Danielle. He has went through things thoroughly. He has called to double check. I mean, I've been involved in a lot of meetings. He's getting his information. He's taking it back. The feedback I get from him is very positive. They know they have a situation. And it needs to be.
Not yet.
It is so, I need to choose my words carefully.
They're under a microscope.
Thank you. That tells you how this is close. We still have a school full of kids there that are dealing, we need, as a county, that should not have a treatment plant there. I'm not saying that we're the reason, but we all know that this has been going on for years, and we're trying to correct a problem here that needs to be corrected. One thing I didn't ask in this was, when we go in and I talked to you on the phone, did you confirm, I know you told me the capacity was there, but Katina, is Gaston, I have not talked to her, is everything good there?
they're still willing to play.
Okay,
Um,
that's what cause I have not had the opportunity to talk to her.
Her, her position all along, and you know this as well as I do, is what, if any, financial contribution are they gonna be expected to make outside of what they would need to do on their own end if they needed to do anything at their plant?
I also, this week and last, have copied their council and Katina, including the update today, as soon as he got off the phone with SRF, so that immediately everyone that could be a potential player is on the track of knowing all the information as soon as it's received, because
Yeah.
I mean,
Full
there's kids in
disclosure.
Gaston that go to that school. She wants to be a good steward of the community.
Well,
as much as anybody.
not only the capacity is the deal, but we have to come into an agreement to send the flow to, because we'll have the line, but we're gonna be sending the flow to her
Oh,
plant.
I hadn't got to that yet, so that's
Sorry,
another
I
thing.
just want.
I'm glad you brought it up,
There's a
'cause
bunch of
I-
bases in this,
I
in a
almost
short
forgot.
period of
Remind
time.
everybody how we envision this playing out, right?
So, well, do you wanna finish what you were getting ready to say?
No, because we were probably getting ready to say the same thing.
Probably. So when we get to, let's hypothetically say this project does get off the ground and it is something that moves forward before closing, we, just like we did with Yorktown, just like we've had to do, with MSD, we're going to have an MOU or an interlocal agreement with all of the parties,
Finalized.
and so
Adopted.
today, this morning, I sent a pretty detailed message email to Carrie, copied all the players,
Very good.
so that he could forward it to his board so that they do not act surprised when they find out there has to be an MOU or an interlocal agreement between all of the players in order for this to be financed.
Basically, SRS needs to know, Gaston's willing to play, accept the flow, we're willing to accept the lines, Westdale's willing to move with this project, the funding, but we're all in this together.
Yeah, that
They
part
have,
comes later,
they have to know this before.
They won't let us close
No.
Right.
without
Well,
that
they can't.
being adopted. Not only an agreement, but it has to be accepted by all the elected officials. For the application, what I, and Danielle and I were talking about is, for purposes of the application, letters of support are sufficient. And to the tune of, yes, we believe this is, a good idea, let's continue to explore options, yada, yada, yada. We support continuing to explore what we can do, sort of thing. And that would come from you guys, that would come from the town, and then that would also, I need one from the school. So, I would be soliciting 3 letters to attach to this funding application whenever it goes in.
And I did ask Carrie to get a letter from the school tomorrow to ask somebody make a motion to, do a letter of support from the school. And then that's one thing I'll be asking you guys after this conversation is, for me to be able to draft a letter in support, and we can put it under Bill's signature, or, however you wanna phrase it, but just giving that authority to say we're interested in seeing what the possibilities are.
I know, since Carrie's heading it up on their part, he's so thorough and very detailed. He was very much watching what was going on with, when the ARP money was involved, and so he's been following this for quite a while. I saw the presentation he did, with the Delaware County redevelopment with that too, and he's on game, he knows it needs to happen, and I think he really, really make every attempt to make sure all the deadlines, and he does understand the money stuff, somebody's gotta pay for it, Westdale, but
He gets it.
that's why he really understands, and he understands where it all got.
They have no business
Fell
being in the
apart
wastewater
before.
treatment business.
And the great thing, going back, when I first got, I'm going back to 2010, I sat in meetings up in the chamber where Kerry was sitting in the back with Larry Riley. He's been at this for a long time. It isn't like he's a beginner at this. Just because he's a new member of that board doesn't mean he doesn't know what he's doing. He has been around quite a bit. So,
He's running the plant up there now because the guy who's been there for years and was super experienced dropped them like they were hot and went to
I could not answer that question.
Somebody told me the name at one
I could
point,
find
and
out
I can't
fairly
remember.
easily.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Is it?
Aaron Wilson is taking care of it now, right now.
It's a shame because the guy they had knew everything and he was ready for this plan. And he up in Winchester, Tennessee.
Gotcha.
The contract at Gaston, at Westville, right? No, not at Gaston, but yeah.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, I guess we would need to go back to the very beginning then on this. I mean, there's several things that we need to do here, but I think the first one is,
Sorry, real quick, I just want to remind the group of how this has all been laid out previously, and it's gonna stay laid out that way. You know, the project essentially involves decommissioning the school's treatment facility, putting in a lift station and pumping to Gaston, okay? That's the 30,000-foot explanation. Conceptually, this board would take ownership of that infrastructure for a variety of reasons. One, it opens up that part of the county and some other things for you. But, you know, the school's getting out of the wastewater treatment business. It doesn't make any sense for them to have to go maintain a lift station and a force main, right? So the way it's currently written is there would be an agreement for treatment between the town and this district, similar to what you have in Chesterfield and Yorktown and MSD, and then the school would become a customer of this district. That's how it's currently laid out. So I just, if anything needs a change, let me know before I put a bow on this thing.
no, I think that was the whole premise when we started this project 2 years ago. I mean, we know what it is. The first off is getting that treatment plant decommissioned and getting the flow sent the other way. Second half for this was development of that area on the northwest part of the county, as far as at some later date getting it from 600 and there to
That was,
28 down back to the.
I'm glad you brought that up, because back when we were having the discussions with the finance authority and Mr. McGough, he made it very clear, we can get out to the blinking light, but he's not gonna pay to go any further than that right now.
Right, and I wanted to ask too. I mean, just so this board, there is still that fund. Do you think that me and you might be able to revisit that conversation if this board
I
decides
think
to move
so.
forward? That we could sit down with Jim and have this conversation if he has any funding left that we might be able to obtain and that extra.
We would be foolish not to revisit that.
Do we need to
I planted that
also?
seed with Camille today, and we absolutely need to try to get a meeting with Jim.
Is any of that funding that was available at the time with USDA and Dr. Gooden still on the table, even with the changes in the administration?
I'm gonna say I doubt it.
So we're just dealing with Jim and what was available out of that first funding bill?
Yes,
Okay.
Brenda, did
That-
you have something else to say?
USDA component, there was a lot of, discussions, grandiose type discussions that likely would never have materialized.
Okay, I just want to make sure, I want to make sure the board had it all what we had done last time.
Yeah, it's the IFA
Right.
direction is where this needs to go.
That school opened in 1957. I graduated from there.
Does the board have any other questions this time for Rob, or any details that you think you might need to know?
Thank you.
Okay, I guess the first thing on here is this board willing to proceed and move forward with this project and submit the application to SRF under the parameters that currently have been outlined to you today? If everything falls in place with the school board meeting to go forward. I'm asking if somebody would.
That's funny you said that. You sometimes read my mind. I would say let's do a roll call.
That's what I was gonna say, but I said, well, we need a motion and a second, then we can do a roll call. But if there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion if this board so sees fit.
And do we need to, sorry, well,
I need a second.
Second, I do.
Okay, I got a first and a second. Go ahead, discussion.
do we need to clarify, cause in terms of a competitive, don't we wanna set that meeting for the April as well? I don't know if that needs to be a part of.
We would take care of the public hearing in our regularly scheduled April
I
meeting.
just didn't know if we need to.
Yeah, we don't, we can get the public meeting, once we get to that point, we get through it, then the public meeting, Penny can list it in front of the agenda. We'll do it before we go into the regular meeting. Okay? So I've got a first and a second to proceed. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, Penny, will you call the roll, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay, second up, does this board want to designate someone to sign the documents to proceed going forward if we move on this and it goes down before we get to the April meeting?
And I'm thinking like the letter of support and anything that, Rob or I,
Fine by March 31st.
Yeah, so,
and that's, are you gonna be in town to sign that?
yes, you.
Okay.
As
So
far
the
as I
letter
know,
of
God
support,
willing, the creek don't rise, I
application,
should be here.
You make the motion.
I will make the motion to have our president, Bill, sign it.
Second.
I've got a first and a second. Any discussion?
yes, and by it, she meant the letter of support and any documents, Rob or I may need.
Yes.
Clarified? Any agreed? Agreed. Okay, first and second, clarified. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Approved. Next thing I have is I talked to Danielle. What I would like is, and I'm sorry I'm looking straight at you, Jason. I would like for a representative from the Regional Wastewater District to attend this special meeting tomorrow, but I would like that to be you.
Yep.
As the superintendent, the attorney and I will not attend. We would like to just send you in there to observe and be able to answer any questions that they might have at that time.
Gotcha.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else that we have forgotten here?
Wait,
I'm
did you
looking
say,
at
do you
you
want
to
me to
ask
go?
you if you wanna-
Do you want to go?
Bunkie report,
Actually, I'm gonna start asking questions about the SRF process.
I think it's a good idea. I didn't wanna.
No,
throw them into
if you're
something.
available, it would be good, because I think there is gonna be questions, and like she said, there's 2 members solid, there's one that's, and there may be questions that need to be answered on the SRF and about the Regional Wastewater District. So if you could attend with Rob, or with Jason, that would be perfect. That would put every aspect of the project at the table.
Yeah, and I will triple check as soon as I get back. I have a post-it sitting by my keyboard, but I'm all but positive it was 5 o'clock tomorrow. Actually, it may be in a text message. I will double check right now.
I'm open regardless, fine, whatever.
Okay,
Thank you.
is there anything else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, we have Mac bids.
You done talking about this?
I was going, he's still coming up. I got him,
Okay,
I
I'm
figured you'd
sorry.
come bring that up under the Commonwealth, let him open up the Comac deal.
So, first vote was to proceed with the application and let her go ahead and get the report updated, correct?
Correct. Second one was, I can sign the documents to move forward, we can get the letter of support, get everything that you need there.
I did, I've got my folks working on an amendment to that.
Not a problem. Email it to Danielle, I'll meet in her office, I
Well-
can get it taken care of.
For the update to the PER, that's actually going to go through DCRC.
Yes.
So, Carrie,
Sit-
Have a general,
I was gonna say, still send it to her office and she'll get it on,
it's gonna be a standalone contract. It may have a general services agreement. That's the one. Check on, I can check.
it's something we can check on. I'm living out of boxes, but yeah.
But I'll get my folks
I'll start checking my emails,
Yeah,
I'll check
So
the emails.
Carrie's making the request for the payment through DCRC, and the DCRC board, all individually, has been made aware the request is going to be coming next Thursday. So, I would want that contract, if it
I can
needs to
have it
be
you
one,
for in business on Friday.
as in this week, Friday. Yeah, perfect. Be-
Yes, cause it has,
If we don't, if we have a general services agreement, it'll be in the form of a task order, similar to what the I do with you guys.
Right.
If we don't, it'll be a short form, 7 or 8 page document, but it's nothing you haven't seen before, but I'll get it to you before.
I can't remember doing the last thing through DCRC with Commonwealth.
Like any of the trail projects that you do.
God, I'm sitting here,
That was the
that was
23rd was with VS.
That was a VS. I can't remember, Rob. I'm sorry. It's
You may have
way too much
an older one
information.
that, you know, if it's 2019 or 20.
I'd say check your records. I'll go through my email because I'm helping Danielle with the back searching. I've got all those emails. I'll do mine and I'll go through the other predecessor as well.
Don't have one, and I'll just do a short one.
Yeah. That'd be great.
All right, are we good here then on that?
Oh, yeah, that was my big one.
Okay, you got anything else? Okay, I'll give you a little bit of a break here, Rob. Ashley, you wanna take a spot in?
I will talk for a moment.
Well, I'm not gonna sugarcoat things. February was not a great month as far as the analytics go. January, we had a good month and we had a lot of updates. February, our updates were more the beginning of the month. We had several, but even our email was down. So we only had 480 opens, which is quite a bit lower than we typically see. Searches were down. I mean, going directly to the website was down 21%. Google searches were down 12%. Bing searches down 13%. The bill pay page was actually down 24%.
It's a cold month.
That's why I'm like, I guess people just didn't
Nobody
really
cared.
want to be online. Maybe they were boycotting for some reason. But yeah, so I wish I had some great news to stand up here and tell you that February just wasn't our best month. I haven't had any other board members besides Ron. I'm hoping maybe since we have someone that wasn't here last month here, Joe, that would also be willing to do a board member video. Just a little something. I want to do Ron's, but then I want to also be able to say, next month we'll have another board member or something along those lines. So if there are any board members that would be willing to do the video, please let me know. Are there any other updates or questions?
I know from not being here, you guys experience a lot of internet outage because I was on it all the time in Florida. And, but when I was trying to watch all these meetings online, all the different ones, every time I turn around, there was some interruption. I was seeing up here and people talking about it, so that's a problem. Do you need to leave?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Rob, you can go with the command, sir.
Yeah, but I'm driving out.
Oh, nice.
Jason, did you give copies of this to everybody? Yes, it's on the attached to the back of your, it was sent out in the board packet, sent out earlier in the month, and it's attached to the back.
Yeah.
This is the recommendation letter for that CAMAC project. So, we bid on February 7th is when we opened bids. We had a good response. We had 5 bidders. Performance Pipeline Inc. was our apparent low when you factor in the base bid and the mandatory alternate bid. And just as a quick overview, the base bid was set up to line the sewer mains up in that area. And basically, when you line mains, you have several different options available to you to reinstate the individual lateral connections. With the most basic being, they send their little machine up in there with a saw blade basically on it, and it cuts out a coupon to reconnect the sewer lateral. That's what we had in your base bid because we wanted to make sure we were able to control costs. We also put in an alternate bid item to consider, which basically, we call them T-liners, but it basically installs a small section of liner material up into the lateral connection that actually, more than just cutting out the liner to allow the lateral to drain, this actually pushes a small piece of liner up into the lateral and seals it off inside the main. So now we have a complete watertight seal at every lateral connection. With that alternate bid item, I'll call them PPI, Performance Pipelines. Total bid cost was $471,642. And then you can see the other bidders' totals listed underneath there. The primary reason they came in a little, it depends on how you look at it. They came in under was that that type of lateral sealing and lateral lining, not everybody's equipped and certified to do that work. So these other folks that bid this job would have had to sub that work out, whereas Performance Pipeline has the ability to do this themselves. So that went a long way. I worked with these guys in Frankton. They've also done projects for Commonwealth in Arcadia. Had very good success working with them. They're easy to work with. They do a great job. They get in, they get out. I'm recommending to you folks that if your budget allows it, that you accept the bid from Performance Pipeline, base bid really, plus the mandatory alternate, because if you look at our budget, and I don't know if you got a copy of the bid tab, my estimate for this work was $392,000, or a little over that.
392.3.
And that was base bid only. Their base bid came in at 279. And if you include the alternate to seal the laterals off, they're at 471. So they're only about 80,000 over what I thought the base bid was gonna cost. And there's what, 50 homes plus or minus up in there? 5. So on a cost per connection, to get that extra layer of protection to keep the clean water out of your sewer lines, knowing that you have to pay for every drop of water that goes in because you're pumping it to somewhere else, I think it's good insurance. So it's ultimately going to come down to Jason and if his budget can support it. But we got a good bid, and if you guys can make it work, I recommend that you accept not only the base bid but the alternate bid as well with Performance Pipeline.
If you remember right on this, we're doing this out of the improvement fund. We're sitting on just at $2.5 million there right now after payment of claims.
Yeah, I think, after, you definitely want to go out and hit those mains first, not to talking with Scotty and Rob, and, and you look at this stuff, the old clay tile, you're gonna get just as much bang for your buck going into the laterals, and for us to come under budget and for what we originally thought would be the base, and to be able to do that many laterals for an additional $75,000 over the base bid, I think we'd be foolish not to have them in there and do it and get it done while they're in there. It's gonna, anytime the guys are out there digging, that if it's breaking down, it's breaking down the lateral, if it's not in the main. So that's definitely when me and Rob talked about it, it's, when we looked at the bid for PPI, the reason that initial base bid's so competitive, they want that work for that second part. And it's to have, if we were to have another crew outfit come in and do it a couple years down the road, we're not gonna get that done for 75K.
Exactly. Scott?
How far does that go? About a foot.
Good?
Sounds good, huh?
The biggest thing is we're sealing it off at the connection to the main.
Right.
And that's where you're gonna get a
With the
majority
I&I.
of the groundwater. Yeah.
How would the board like to proceed?
I'd make a motion that we approve the PPI. For 279 and the 471.
It's 471,
Total.
642 total. That takes care of both the lateral and the main.
Second.
I've got a first and second to go to the base bid plus all mandatory alternates. Any discussion? See none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Approved.
And the last thing was we need to get Contracts. one of the things that we're looking at with this project is trying to get them in the last 3 sections of runs of a line there going down on the south side of Camac Street heading to the creek is in a field line. It just L's off on the back side, south side of Camac. It's a field that we're planting. I talked with the farmer. He said he usually gets in there beginning of May, and Rob is wanting to kind of get this out to the contractor that we got approval and everything, get this to him as early as possible. They said they could provide him with all the insurance and bonds within fairly quick time. But having given the board, given Bill authority to sign off on the prepared contract moving forward. That way we can get this done as soon as possible.
You can entertain a motion
What do you ask?
to enter into the contract, to allow me to enter into the contract so they can get started.
A second.
Got a first and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Approved.
Danielle, do you want me to email you this draft agreements? It'll be similar to what we got with Brackman.
Anything else, sir?
That's all I have.
Jason, I'd like you to touch on one more thing, our meeting with MSD, if you would, please.
Yeah, we, had a sit down with MSD, you know, we got the initial rate increase in, October. We never got any type of, Excel spreadsheets or anything that justified that increase until late November. Jennifer got her hands on it and felt like the initial rate of 327 was overcharged. Came back, there were some points that she were hitting on, some of the costs that were being, thrown on the wastewater treatment plant, some of engineering, and some other additional costs.
Had 5 different points.
Yeah, lease payments. About January, their rate consultant and was finally given instruction to talk with Jennifer, and they kind of went back and forth. And I think we kind of stood at 3 points, and one still being some of the engineering costs of MSD being associated with the wastewater plant, some lease payments, then also how what year of costs that we were going to be using to justify our rate. Our contract said it had to be the previous year, the previous closed out year, and they were trying to associate the initial rate increase with the coming year. We couldn't ever come to terms on those. Danielle sent them letterhead, told them, you know, we feel like we're being overly charged even based on the contract. We're going to invoke arbitration. They reached out to me and Bill and asked if we would be willing to sit down with the district administrator and the board member. We went into that conversation, that meeting, and it was kind of a curveball. So the initial rate back in November was 327 per 100 cubic foot. They later came back in January and said it should be $3.10 per 100 cubic foot. And we didn't get initial Excel until January, correct?
Correct.
So we sat down at the meeting. They told us that they were gonna give in to all of Jennifer's requests and told us our new rate was gonna be $3.30. So somehow all the Jennifer's requests have been answered and our rates now even higher than what it originally was in October, November, December, January, and February. So, at that meeting, we just said, okay, I think we're all gonna rely on the expertise of our legal counsel and rate consultant at this point, and send it over to Jennifer and we'll get a look at it. She got that, I think it was last Friday. Unfortunately, Jennifer's out on vacation this week, and I think, is it Jessica that works underneath her? Right? Jessica, I made sure that she got a copy of it too, but we probably won't get anything back after Jennifer runs her initial numbers and see what's been added or taken away.
And they changed years. They changed years that they used. And they said our flow went down. The biggest gist, I guess the gist of the end is they had this all done and run before me and Jason walked in there. They had time to do that. They had time to get us that information before we walked into that meeting. I was not about to go any further until we had done our analysis and I had brought it back to the board for your guys' comments. So I pretty much ended the meeting right there. Until that came down, there was no way for us to even talk about anything because we didn't know what that number was. You're throwing now at me, we went from 289 to 310 to 327, and now you're telling me 330, and you ran a whole new year, and we have nothing in front of us.
So,
And I was done at that point right there because we had not seen any of that analysis or had the chance to talk with Jennifer and justify what the numbers were.
So this is me kind of like, our rate's kind of twofold. We have a rate, a percentage of the capacity we buy at the treatment plant, then we pay a percentage of costs associated with what flows through that interceptor that go into the treatment plant. So there's points where they said, well, your guys' flow went down, so your rate goes up. And after Jennifer explained it further to us, there's some logic to that.
It makes sense when you,
Because,
when you think about it.
that our flow goes down and less flow goes through that interceptor, so it's associated with a larger cost that covers the cost of that interceptor.
We pay for capacity,
Yeah.
whether we use it or not. Same as if you rent a car, you pay a certain amount for a car for the weekend. Whether you drive it 1 mile or you drive it 200 miles, you pay the exact same price. Our flow rate would get adjusted. If our rate went down, we're still paying for 14%. So if we're 100 and it's costing 327, we go to 50, our rate goes above 327 because we're still paying for that 14% capacity, whether we use it or not. So that 327 would be 375 because you're still paying for that capacity according to their logic of what they said was in there, which I haven't verified yet. But that's
So
was
we
the just.
me, Bill, and Danielle
Say
had
it. I didn't say it. I said that was their statement, not mine.
call, and Jennifer said there's definitely some logic to that there's not gonna be a 40 cents different than what she's saying. And so she has to run these numbers, get back to us, and we can move on to arbitration.
I think I think to be fair to say, so the arbitrators, when we stand in there, that we got a second set of numbers, we ran them, and then we know whether we agree or disagree, but we didn't just throw our hands up and say, we're done, let's just go to arbitration. We looked at the proposal, they changed the year, and get ours back from our CPA, that if we don't agree, I agree 100% and get moving.
What's gonna happen next year? And the year after that?
The same thing.
Amen.
Well, and I think, well, with that, I say, but once we go to arbitration and that contract is locked, there's the stuff of adding in. No, the formula is the formula. Any contract I've been into, you don't alter a contract unless both parties agree to an alter. We did not agree to any alterations. The contract we agreed to last year is the contract. The wording in it, there is no other words that can be added, no other things that can be put in. So until we get that locked, then if we have to go to arbitration to lock that, then next year, there won't be any changes in the formula. This is the formula, here's the numbers you're to use, and then it's just between the two CPAs and justifying the numbers to us. But right now, there's too many different things that were thrown in there into this meeting as far as changing the year, adding the lease, adding the engineering, moving things around that were not in the contract that we negotiated in 23 or 24.
So what are we doing about the building that we're getting right now? Are we going ahead and paying it, or did you set up
We
an
set it.
escrow, or what did you do?
We set it aside.
We got billed 1 month, that was over, it was, so they billed us at 327, which is now lower than what they're.
But we are paying it, and
We're
then
paying we're paying our normal, what we did, and the rest is set aside in a separate account.
Good.
For the simple fact, still, even if we go to arbitration, we did not get served notice in certain timeframes that I think is still up for question. And if not, it will go back to the 289 rate for another year before we go back to the table again. That was in the contract, and that's part of the contract, correct? Am I wrong?
The formula was also in the contract.
Exactly, but that was there, and we did not get proper notice
268.
because it was above 20%. So we did not get proper notice for us to do our due diligence.
They have billed us at 268 this latest current cycle, because they've recognized that we're disputing that.
Okay.
Well, and then you were out, and we got billed. December's bill was at the new rate, and it shouldn't have been. January should have been the first. Am I correct in that statement? We got billed a month early on the new rate.
They did that to all their customers.
Well, that's not ours. Ours went through the end, so we got billed a rate we should not have been billed until January. We should have came on our February bill, correct?
Yeah.
So there's things there still yet to settle. We're not there yet. I agree with you, Ray, but I would at least like to give the opportunity to see the numbers so this board can have a discussion, and then we can decide where to go from there. Okay? All right, takes care of that. Any board members got any other business before us today?
No.
What'd you say? You gotta go to the restroom? Okay, sorry, I thought that's what you said.
appointment to present an offer.
Okay, anybody out here got anything, Dan, anybody?
I'll be gone, the end of this month on vacation. I started with my contract, so I gotta give the board notice.
Will you be at the April meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Benny and Scott are both.
Enjoy your vacation. You guys are more than capable.
Yes.
All right, seeing I've got no more business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion that we
I'll second.
adjourn.
There's 1 and 2, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Hey,
Joe,